Hello everyone, welcome to your new module all about facilitating the holistic development of babies, toddlers and young children. And you will notice the word facilitate, which is another element to your role as an ECD practitioner. So for us to facilitate, it means that you are creating a space for children to learn that is creative, that's fun and that is meaningful. So in terms of holistic development, so often we say that holistic development means that we are developing all the domains of the children, but there's so much more to holistic development. It means that we need to make use of your knowledge as an ECD practitioner. You need to look at the child in terms of his body and mind, the family that he lives with, the family setting, the community he comes from, the background. We also need to look at the child's strengths and weaknesses, and we also need to pay attention to your role as a facilitator, your role as an ECD practitioner. You need to have a caring approach, you need to be positive, and you also need to make sure that you pay attention to a child on an individual level. So if we consider all of those elements, it will give us a good idea of what support the child needs, and we can adapt our teaching based on that. So we all know that children learn best by having fun and doing all kinds of enjoyable things. So all your activities, so basically everything on your daily program, everything that you do needs to be fun and creative and enjoyable for the children. So another thing that you need to consider when developing activities or planning your day is there's certain components that make an activity a good and meaningful activity. The first thing is everything we do and your activity needs to fit the development of the children. In other words, we need to make sure that it's appropriate for their development, but also in a way that it is increasing their development. So that's one element. The next part is that it needs to be fun. It needs to be enjoyable. We can't let children sit in desks in a classroom and listen to the teacher speak the whole time. That's not fun. That's not enjoyable, and definitely not developmentally appropriate. So it needs to fit the development, be fun. Another important part is that everything you do, your activities, need to link the child with the wider world. In other words, we teach children about what's going on in the world, and one of those elements is themes. We need to use themes, and everything that we do need to be based on our themes so that we can extend the children's understanding. The last component of a good activity is it needs to have some form of familiarity or some safety. In other words, that means that we need to do things that the children are familiar with so that they feel comfortable, but also have an element to our activities that's a little bit more challenging. So it's one of those concepts where we move from the known to the unknown, or from the familiar to the unfamiliar. So those are components of a good activity. So it's very important that one of the skills that you also need to have and practice working on and using is to be attentive. In other words, to pay attention to the individual children in your classroom. You need to practice observing them and recording what you are observing, because often what we see is much more meaningful than what the children are actually doing. So we need to practice that skill of paying attention and active listening and observation. So I know it's often difficult with the large number of children in the classrooms that we are working with on a daily basis, and I want to encourage you to try and think of creative ways on how you can make a point in paying attention to individual children. So I often say that maybe if you have a class of 30 children, divide them up between Monday to Friday, and every day you pay attention to, not that you're going to forget the rest, but you are just going to look at their behavior, things that they say, and make sure that you have conversations with them and all of those things. So divide them up, make sure that you remind yourself to pay attention to children. So when they're doing free play or when it's outside play, make a point and an effort to sit and really pay attention to what the children are doing. You will be amazed at what you are actually going to see, and the things that we pick up is going to help so much in helping the child develop. So there's often things that they say or that they do that we can use that tell us what is needed, when we need to do what. So also looking at their behavior when they do an activity will tell us, listen, is this activity working or is it boring or is it too difficult? So really important to practice that skill. So another element of holistic development is responding to the cues of children. So a different word, a little bit strange, but a cue is the same thing as a signal. A signal can be something that they say or that they do, or body language or behavior that tells you that this child needs some support, some guidance, or some information at the moment. So throughout the day, children will give us certain cues, certain signals that tells us, listen, I need to pay attention here, I need to do something here. And this leads to teachable moments. So a teachable moment is that specific moment when a child is ready and open to receiving some feedback or learning a new skill or receiving some support, emotional support or encouragement. And I'm going to make an example for you from in the training room where we normally are in class. Often as a facilitator, say for example, I will see a practitioner that's maybe really tired. And how I see that, it can be how the person is sitting, maybe they yawn, and I will see, okay, this person looks really tired. So then I can make use of this. So that's the cue. Her body language or what she did informed me that, listen, she's very tired. So then what I can do then in that moment is to make everyone aware that maybe we all need a break. And then I can also use that moment as a teachable moment to help them learn about how to keep fresh in the classroom. Maybe say to them that if they need a break, they can go and get fresh air, because fresh air is important. Maybe keep a glass of water next to you so that you can drink water and stay refreshed. Or another part that I need to look at is my facilitation. Maybe I'm being very boring, or that the information I'm sharing is not as interesting. So the cue was the practitioner's body language that told me that she's tired. Or a lot of people are maybe tired. Then the teachable moment was me paying attention, noticing the signal, and then using that time to share some information with the group. So this is just an example, but I mean, there's often examples from the classroom. So it is very important for you as a facilitator and ECD practitioner to respond to those cues as soon as possible, because in that moment the child is ready to either share something or hear something from you or receive some support. So it doesn't help if we notice it but leave it until later in the day, because the moment has passed and the child might not recall what had happened previously. So another quick example, so say for example there's a little boy in your classroom that you know he loves being with his friends and often are amongst other children, but the one day you are seeing him sitting alone playing in the sandpit. So that's unusual. So there was a cue, there's a signal that something is different. So it would be very valuable to immediately, once you notice it, go to the child and explore why he is playing alone. Because if you leave it and then later in the day you ask him, but why did you play outside in the sandpit all by yourself that you are so used to playing with your friends? The child might not remember that happened, or he can't remember when and why he did that. So it's really important that we respond as soon as possible and that we can use teachable moments. Another thing that I want to end off with is, please go through your module and pay attention to what it says about active listening and observation, as that is a very important skill that ECD practitioners need to be aware of, as it helps to facilitate the children's holistic development. So I hope it was helpful. Let me know if you need any support.